Story 1. I hacked someone's Ring camera. I saw something horrifying. It was just supposed to be a stupid prank. You know how some people can hack into Ring cameras? My friend Johnny is a computer whiz, and he thought it would be the funniest shit to scare someone senseless by spying on them and talking out of the microphone. In retrospect, it was a terrible idea. Even at the time, it felt sort of gross. But we're 15 years old. Besides, Eddie was on board, and I didn't want to be the party pooper telling them we should not break the law and spy on people. That would be totally lame, right? It took about an hour for Johnny to hack into the camera. The account was registered to a guy who lived over 1,000 miles away, in Texas. The three of us huddled around the computer as the live feed loaded. What if it's like people having sex? Score? Dude, no one would set up the camera in their bedroom. Who said they'd be in the bedroom? We were cut off by the video feed filling the screen. For 10 whole minutes, it was just an empty kitchen, completely boring. It looked like a rich kitchen, though, with all that stuff you see in Home Depot, that my mom would drool over every time we went. We waited. Eddie opened a bag of chips and started eating. "They'll hear you," Johnny hissed. A few more minutes went by. Finally, a shadow appeared on the wall. Then a woman walked into view. Much to our disappointment, she wasn't hot. She was older, about 60 or so, with blonde hair cut into a severe bob. Looked rich from her clothing and stuff. She was looking back into the hallway, talking to someone off-screen. "What's she saying?" Eddie whispered. We listened, and finally I could make out a few snippets of her words. "Leave it here tonight. Deal with it tomorrow. In the freezer." Johnny leaned towards the computer, a wicked grin on his face. He opened his mouth to yell something into the microphone, but at that moment someone else came on screen. It was a man, but he didn't look like he was her husband. He looked like he was half her age and a foot taller than her. A buff guy, the type of guy you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley late at night. His pale blue eyes swept across the kitchen, then he stepped in front of the fridge. "The freezer?" he asked, his low voice clearly audible. She nodded. He opened the left side of the fridge, presumably the freezer, and began pulling everything out of it. Not just the food, but the shelving and the drawers. Like my mom does when she's doing a deep clean. Finally, he stood up, brushed off his pants, and walked back out of the kitchen. When he came back, he was dragging something behind him. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. A large, long object in a black trash bag slid over the kitchen floor behind him. He stopped in front of the fridge for a moment. Then he crouched down. With a grunt, he lifted the thing upright and began trying to shove it into the freezer. Johnny, Eddie, and I looked at each other, our mouths hanging open. I knew we were all thinking the same thing. Is that a body? The man gave the thing another good shove, but instead of fitting into the freezer, it fell back out towards him. He dodged it, and it fell on the ground with a sickening thwack. But in the fall, the trash bag shifted, and poking out of the bag was a bloody, pale hand. Johnny, Eddie, and I screamed. But as soon as the sound left my lips, I remembered, the microphone is on. Their heads snapped towards us. A pause. Was that coming from the camera? She muttered to the man. Someone might have hacked your camera. It happens, he replied. He sounded fearful, but the woman didn't show an ounce of fear. She ran to the camera, her entire face filling the screen, jowls jiggling, wrinkled lips pressed together. Her hard, dark eyes stared into the camera, even though she couldn't see us, and then she spoke. "If you tell a soul about what you saw, I'll rip your fucking heads off." Then she picked up the camera. The feed filled with blurry, twisted shapes as it was tilted around, and then everything went black. I stared at Johnny and Eddie, shaking. By the time I looked back at the computer, we'd been logged out of the account. It's been 3 months since that happened. I eventually did tell the police. Well, my parents did, but I don't remember the name on the account, and Johnny hasn't been able to log back in. Apparently, he got their info from a data breach at another company, and now that they've changed their password, he doesn't have a chance. He did pass along the email that was linked to the account, though. So far, we've heard nothing from the police or the woman, but I'm terrified, because just a few days ago, my parents decided to get a Ring camera for our front door, and when I got back from school yesterday, I could have sworn I heard something come through the microphone for just a second. Story 2. I met a man online. His username was 2A, but I'll call him Hassan. Hassan was a kind man. He said he smoked weed, like music, and was named after gold. We began talking that night. This was the first time we spoke, but we laughed a lot that night. But somewhere around midnight, my time, he began saying he wanted to play music, so he blasted his music for me while we talked. Eventually, we got to the topic of education and careers. I told Hassan I wanted to work in an office or something. Then he asked a question. Could you work in radio? I didn't know what to say, so I said yes, I could. Hassan's tone changed. Could you please get to a radio? He was whispering with the music of, but I could hear something rising in his voice. I tried to say something, but in all honesty, I didn't know what to say. Then his next choice of words chilled me to my bones. Have you ever seen war or murder? I didn't speak. Have you? I said no. His next words frightened me. Help me, please help us. I froze. I was silent. You have to help me. They are killing us, please. Get to a radio, please. I was frozen. See, I was home alone at night, Rumi, gone, near a wooded area with nothing but darkness. Hello? He said finally again. Are you there? I admitted I was just speechless to him, but then I asked, is this a joke? His voice were very shaky. No, please help me. I panicked at this point. I didn't want to call the cops because I had no idea his location in the U.S. or even if he was somewhere else in the world. So I shut down. I'm sorry. I said, maybe you should sleep. Close your eyes. You seem stressed. Yes, he responded. I need rest, thank you. I got silent somehow, knowing something was wrong, but said, we'll talk tomorrow, okay? Hassan said, okay. Lovely talking. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night. Good night, Hassan. Call ended. That was the last I heard from him. His account was deactivated. I still have the old chat, can't bring myself to delete it. I hope he's okay. I am tearful when I think of it still. I was so powerless and scared. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Hassan. I only posted because I felt guilty. I got scared. I could help. Story 3. I work in a haunted pub. All right, so I've been sitting on this for a year or so. But the longer I wait, the more shit happens. So I kind of just want to dump everything out. And you guys can bully me for being a pussy and give advice. So I'm an apprentice chef. I started about a year and a half ago, and the job itself is a dream come true. My co-workers quickly become like family. The pub is the only good restaurant and bar in town. So I already knew most of the people there, just from hanging around there, small town. You know how it is. The pub itself was one of the first buildings in town. I think the oldest parts are roughly 140 to 150 years old. So about 6 months into my apprenticeship, I started having really weird experiences. It started one day when the head chef was outside talking to a delivery driver. I was packing away bags of pasta in the dry store when I hear someone come in through the staff-only door that is connected to the gaming room or pokies room. I quickly checked it out because it was relatively early in the morning, like 9-ish, which for whatever reason is prime time for the local crackheads to lose money on the slot machines and have a meltdown and accidentally walk into the kitchen. So I walk into the main kitchen room and lo and behold, nothing. The door is closed and still. Fuck it. I'm tired as shit, probably imagined it. Go back to packing away pasta. The door opens again and I walk out. No one there. Again, whatever. Repeat 1 or 2 more times. And I hear my head chef walking in from the outside door. I knew it was the outside door because it makes this really noticeable squeak that drives me fucking mental. I asked him about something to do with the order, and as he replied to me, I saw him unlock the other door. The one I heard open and close 3 or 4 times. Keeping in mind, there are only 2 doors to exit the kitchen, and each has very distinct noises you associate with them. They sound nothing like the cool room or bathroom doors. Fast forward a week or 2, and I get in half an hour early to make pizza bases. I was standing in the middle of the room on a bench, rolling out the dough, when I get this weird, cliché, icy feeling on the right side of my neck. I spin around to see what's causing it, and for the briefest of moments, see a black, shadowy figure peeking around the corner, to the dry store, maybe 2 meters behind me. All night long, every time I could glance over towards the dry store doorway, I would either see this apparition again briefly or shudder. This still happens from time to time, But it's different now because it's just kind of like white noise. But that initial night was freaky. A few honorable mentions are my turning knife disappearing the one and only time I've ever needed it, only to appear in my knife bag about 5 minutes after getting yelled at for losing it, drinking a beer in the bar after my shift, and while mid-conversation, everything just went completely silent for about 5 to 10 seconds, multiple times yelling service and hearing a reply only to realize no waitresses are in the kitchen, smelling cigarettes in the cool room. The event that made me decide maybe this story was worth telling happened last night. So, over the past month, one of the bars in the building got completely redone. It all pink and floral compared to its beige and dark beige it had previously. For anonymity's sake, I don't want to give away what they named the bar, but it's named after the guy who built the original pub. So last night, me and my mates were testing out this new bar, and a few drinks in, we start talking about the guy who built the pub. I'm really into local history, so I was going decently in depth about everything, when all of a sudden, there's this massive thud. It came from nowhere, but everyone in the room heard it. While everyone's silent and looking around, one of my mates pipes up. It's probably the ghost of insert guy who built the pub's name here, coming to have a pint in his new bar. And as much as it pains me to say it, got a decent laugh. Until the second thud. This time, no one said anything, and in the silence, I swear to God, Allah, Muhammad, whatever deity you want me to swear to, I am not making this up. In the silence I heard, whispered in my ear, group of queers, like what even the fuck? What am I meant to do with that sentence? Story 4. I felt myself going asleep. This happened this summer, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. This August, me and my sister shared a room during our vacation. I've always been a light sleeper, so whenever I wake up, I tend to go to the bathroom or go to drink water. A particular night, towards the end of our trip, I woke up in the middle of the night and just tried to go back to sleep. But, and this has only happened to me once, I felt my vision going blurry and falling asleep, and I, for some reason, uttered "I'm in a dream," uncannily loud inside my head. Then when I opened my eyes, I couldn't see. Not that I saw black. I felt my eyes blinking, but nothing was registering. At the same time, I was in what I can only describe in a sleep paralysis type state, because I couldn't move or speak, plus going blind. And worst of all, when I became aware that I was asleep, all sound, from my sleeping sister's rhythmic breathing, from the sounds of the street, became an extreme, loud, glitchy, buzzing noise. Imagine a broken printer. The sound was the worst of all of this by far. I can only describe it as every sound glitching inside my head. All this happened in the span of maybe 10 seconds and was nothing like I have ever experienced. When everything snapped back to normal, I was left horrified and in silence for a few minutes. So I woke up my sister to tell her this, before I actually fell asleep. I have experienced sleep paralysis a few times now, mostly when I was a kid, and this was nothing like it. And I triggered this event by realizing that I was sleeping has never happened to me. Story 5. Creepy Alexa Experience. So this happened about 6 to 7 years ago when I got an Alexa for Christmas that year. My parents are old school, and my dad was strictly against having the Alexa even taken out of the box. It took months of begging and pleading before I could set it up, with conditions, of course. It had to be in my room only. Nowhere else in the house, just my room. When I was not speaking to it or using it, it was either mute or unplugged. Do not talk about personal matters around it, so like family matters. Passwords, addresses were not to be said around the Alexa, even if it was muted. So, with those rules and probably a few more, I got to set up my Alexa. I had discovered a while after having it that you could play some guessing games on it. Being an only child at home and bored 99% of the time, I used this feature a lot, like, honestly, almost too much. One night while I was playing some guessing game and playing a game on my iPad, I had gotten a question wrong. I don't remember the question or what I answered. I only remember what Alexa said. It was something along the lines of, "Wrong. Now listen close." Obviously, this catches my attention and I stop what I'm doing and look at my Alexa. Right on cue, she continues in this horrifying whisper, raspy voice, "Don't look behind you." Needless to say, I unplugged my Alexa and refused to use it for months years after that. Story 6. Hat Man. When I was in my teens, to be like 15 years old, I encountered one of those dark entities that I have heard about a lot of people, the one with the black hat. The first night I saw him, I was having a really weird dream that I was in a dark room, with no light around me, that like a small spotlight on me, and I could feel someone watching me but couldn't see who or what was looking at me. I remember that night, I woke up scared and looking around my room. My bedroom was small, and my bed was right in front of the door, and when I turned to see the door, there it was. A super tall, dark shadow in my door, hence my door was color white. So this thing was clearly visible. I couldn't see a face, but I could see that on the top of its head was a hat shaped. I cleared my eyes just to make sure my eyes weren't playing tricks on me, but when I opened my eyes again, from rubbing them, it was still there. I was scared and I could feel my skin getting hot as that thing stood there. I couldn't sleep that night, and I just sat there looking at the thing, because I thought maybe if I looked at it, won't try to attack me or something. But until this day, still think about that. Mostly because I told other people about this story, and they told me that they also had seen it. And it's called the Hat Man. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more videos. See you in the next video.